One.
Hi, this is Brad Salzman, and today we're going to be interviewing Jerry Wise. Jerry is a life and relationship counselor and founder of Jerry Wise Relationship Systems. Jerry, thank you so much for joining us today.
Hey, Brad. Thank you very much for having me.
Yeah,
You've been a friend for a long time.
Yes, I've had the pleasure of working together with Jerry for a number of years. We have worked together on certain cases. I've sent him clients and he sent me clients. So yeah, thank you so much for taking the time out of your busy schedule to sit down with me today.
My pleasure.
So Jerry, tell us a little bit about yourself, who you are, how you got to be where you are now, and what kind of therapy you do.
Well, I'm old, so I've done a lot of things, and often your resume or your vitae life story kind of gets longer as you get older. And you know, I started out as a pastor and a pastoral counselor. Then I was interested in doing therapy and learning more about therapy and getting a master's degree in marriage and family therapy. I also was always very interested in addiction, so I got addiction certification to be a certified addictions counselor, and then a social worker. I was kind of grandfathered in for that back in our era here, and then worked in a psychiatric practice. So I got a lot of experience working with psychiatric issues, as well as marriage and family issues, as well as spiritual issues, as well as chemical dependency issues. And so I can see a number of layers when people come. And then I wanted to expand my practice. And so I went into life and relationship coaching so that I could meet with anybody in the world and be of help to them. And I have clients in many different places in the world. So that's kind of where I've ended up. And I've always wanted to promote a Murray Bowen family systems approach to healing, and have done that in all the different areas that I've worked in the past. I've tried to bring some Bowen understanding to the healing and recovery.
So hang on, am I hearing you say that, so you're a trained coach as well as a therapist?
Mm-hmm.
What's the difference for those people who don't really know the difference?
Well, it is a tricky difference, and I'm not sure how much difference there is. I bring all of my experience to working with clients. There are some coaches, coaching and psychotherapy. Coaching tends to deal with the present and the future. Psychotherapy tends to deal with the past. Because I have training in the past, I can do past, present, and future, of someone's life. But I wouldn't advise all coaches to go into past issues. But coaching tends to be more present and a future look, rather than resolving issues from the past. And that's kind of the technical difference between coaching and therapy.
Okay. So is coaching sort of more concrete, or more sort of dealing with issues right now in the present?
Or skills. And actually what's interesting, which I think goes right along with my particular theoretical orientation, Murray Bowen, throughout his works, he doesn't talk about therapists, he talks about coaches, people who are coaching people in Bowen family theory. And so coaching was used back when I was a marriage and family therapist and studying about Murray Bowen, but he would use the word coaching because it is a coaching to become yourself.
Yeah.
That's what it is.
That's so interesting, because back then there was no such thing as a life coach, right? When he was using that word, he was using it to make a point that a therapist should be a coach.
Right.
Interesting.
Exactly.
So you've mentioned Bowen family systems already a couple of times. Tell us a little bit about Murray Bowen and what are Bowen family systems and how that informs the work that you do.
Well, I remember doing my own recovery and working on my own issues and looking far and wide for some kind of help to my own codependency, my own addictive personality, to all those issues, and going, how can I be healthy, and my own dysfunctional family and those kinds of issues. And in trying to do so many different looks and reading hundreds, if not thousands, of self-help books to try to find the answer, when I began to learn more about Murray Bowen family systems with the help of other people, I wish it was just all on my own, but with the help of other people, and particularly a supervisor, pastor, psychologist at the seminary I attended, was a big help in me identifying or taking an approach of looking at my life in a different way, in a systems way. And Murray Bowen was he's probably the grandfather of family therapy, because he was one of the first ones to bring in the family and then look at the individual within the family context. And he saw how different the patient looked than if you just looked at the patient and not looked at how the family was interacting with them. And he goes, wow, there's so much here that we are missing, because he was the first one to hospitalize the whole family with this schizophrenic patient. And he's going, when there's more enmeshment, psychosis goes up. When there's more differentiation or more sense of self, psychosis goes down. And he's going, we wouldn't have thought that, and so that was kind of the beginnings of Bowen family systems. And so I liked looking at myself within relationship systems, rather than just me as just Jerry and my own self-esteem but it's my self-esteem as I interact with other people, my sense of self as I am connected to other people, because we're always connected.
Yeah.
We're never not connected. I mean, even if even if I'm on an island somewhere with no one around, my family of origin is still inside me.
Right. So even a single guy who lives by himself, hasn't seen his family of origin for 20 years, doesn't leave the house because of COVID, family therapy is still appropriate for him.
And I think, and I like having a family therapy approach, even if I work with individuals, and people will say, oh, well, what if my husband doesn't want to come for marital coaching and I go, okay, let's do marital coaching with one of you. Mm-hmm. There's no, because we're going to do family issues anyway. It's going to have a family approach. So it doesn't matter whether and many people think family therapy is a therapy in which you get everybody in the room with the therapist. I know many people who do family therapy who bring everybody in to the room, but the therapist doesn't do a family systems approach. Mm. But they have the whole family in, they call it family therapy, and they're really not doing that. They're just doing, okay, what do you think? Okay, what do you think? Okay, what do you think? Yeah. And now that may not be unhelpful, but family therapy is an orientation. It's not just a technique.
Okay.
If that makes
sure sense. Yeah. No, I understand. So just as an aside, you're saying that an individual, someone who's in a relationship, in a marriage, they can do marital therapy or couples therapy even by themselves, even if their spouse doesn't come?
All the time. And many times it produces positive results. Because just like in the book by Winifred, what is her last name? And you would think I would not. Riley, I think. Okay. It takes one to tango. She is a marriage and family therapist who talks about changing her marriage with one person, and how that's the only way we change a marriage anyway.
Yeah.
Because I don't fix the spouse. I don't fit,
Yeah, that's a great point, Jerry. So many people think that marriage therapy means I'm going to schlep my spouse into therapy so that the therapist can make my spouse change. right? That's the solution,
Exactly.
right? I don't need to
That's
do
the
anything.
solution.
We just need
Right.
a
That's
referee, someone there to
we need a
say, hey,
referee.
your spouse is wrong. He needs to change or she needs to change, and you're fine, right? That unfortunately, that's an expectation I think for a lot of people when they get into couples
Lots,
therapy.
lots. And believe it or not, that expectation, if I'm thinking in a family systems orientation, that expectation is from their family of origin. It comes out of that
Interesting.
very expectation. And so whenever someone comes to me or asks a question, or it's whatever question we ask, it comes out of our paradigm, which includes our family of origin within us. And so when someone comes and I want you to fix my husband because he needs lots of help,
Yeah.
and I'm unhappy, that orientation began many decades before.
Yeah.
And even before she even met her husband.
Sure. Yeah. Well, okay. So what do you do in, let's say, the situation where you have a couple contacting you and they say, hey, Jerry, we want to do couples therapy. And you realize from talking to them that they're not really ready for couples therapy and it's just going to be about finger pointing and that kind of a thing. Do you try and convince them to come in individually or to deal with one of them, or what do you do in that situation?
Well, I usually try to start with wherever the couple wants to start. And if they want to come in as a couple and start doing finger pointing, they can. And then I will begin to intervene. So whatever they come in with is what I have to work with.
Mm-hmm.
Now, and rather than going, oh, no, this isn't going to work. I'm just going to meet with you and I'm just going to meet with you. If I take that kind of strong man approach, that may be a turnoff for the couple in the beginning.
Sure,
so
absolutely.
I take with, hey, if you want to come in, come in, but then we're still going to see what we're going to have to see. So, you can do it with your husband here, you can do it without your husband here.
Yeah.
The other thing is that me staying as neutral as I can be, and neutral doesn't mean opinionless. And neutral doesn't mean I have no values, beliefs, or perspective.
Right.
That's not what neutrality means. Neutrality is an emotional detachment where I'm aware of my values and aware of my beliefs, but neutrality is not, hey, I don't care, doesn't matter whatever the couple does.
Right.
That's not what neutrality means.
But
I want to maintain that neutrality.
I was going to say that that's something that I've noticed, having worked together with you over the years, that I think is one of your real strengths is your ability to be gentle, but still firm, right? In other words, as you said, you don't use a strongman of approach of like, look, you're working with me, this is how it's going to go, right? You have a much more a disarming approach, I think, which is, we'll take it from where you are, but I'm going to, Jerry, Jerry, I'm going to
gently
where I need you to go, and I'm going to, get you to where I need you to go to get to.
And I suppose there are some couples or some individuals who need a stronger approach, and that's probably not me. So I know I have limitations, but I try to treat people the way I would like to be treated.
Yes.
And again, if I'm being true to my values or true to my philosophy,
yes,
my approach comes out of my family of origin. Everything we do, even this approach that we're talking about has some of its roots in, because I'm not one to just go boom, 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 and, just shoot people,
yes,
where other people might do that and be much more direct or much more confrontive in that way. And sometimes that can be a value.
Yes.
But I've just seemed to go with the success
that's not your style.
I have had. That's not my style. Right.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay. I like the gentle but solid or firm approach.
Yes.
That just seems right to me. And
yes.
maybe that comes out of my family of origin.
Yes.
Or whatever's, that.
But. Yeah. Yeah. And I know that in the past I've sent you certain clients that I was working with that I felt needed a gentler approach, that because I knew that they just wouldn't take it if I was too direct or too strong with them. They would just, they would quit,
right.
Yeah. Just to change the topics a little bit, I wanted to talk to you about YouTube. I know since I've known you, your presence on YouTube has grown tremendously, right? I think you now have something like 40,000 subscribers on YouTube.
We just passed
Amazing.
42,020 or something.
Unbelievable. And this has all happened in the last couple of years, right? Where it's really just exploded.
It has.
Yeah.
It has.
So,
With the help of a social media guy that's been a help to me
yeah. So
also.
talk a little bit about, first of all, I guess why you decided to get out on YouTube and how your involvement in YouTube has changed your practice.
Well, I can remember when I started doing videos, and I was very insecure about that. Because you're right, talking to a camera is different than talking to a group of people, and just kind of talking to yourself while, people watching
Yes.
on the other end, but I'm
Yeah.
just talking to this little thing. And that was intimidating and difficult. And so I chose the approach, anything worth doing is worth doing poorly. And so I began doing it poorly. I'm not sure I've improved too much, but I began just beginning and just doing it and seeing whether something sticks. But I had confidence in the approach and the material, maybe not as much confidence in me, but I had confidence in what I was trying to say.
Yeah.
And just like even in your message, you may feel insecure personally, but your message is still true. It's still that people need to hear
Mm-hmm.
about these things,
Yeah.
even through an imperfect vessel, that I'm. And so I began doing videos. That was back in like 2012. And then, and now I've probably got, I would guess maybe 200 or so
Wow.
videos now, up
Wow.
to 225. I'm not sure. We were going to count them and we haven't counted them yet.
Mm-hmm.
And for many people, they've responded very positively saying, gosh, I've watched 10 of your videos and I've learned more in 8 hours than I learned in 5 years with my therapist. And I could see how that was, not because I'm such a genius,
Yeah.
but because I felt the same way when I worked with Dr. Stoneberg, or I worked with Reggie Munson, or therapists I had in the past. I thought, I'm learning more in an hour than
Yeah.
than all the time I spent with
Yeah.
someone else
Yeah.
for many hours. And it was just really helpful. And so from the YouTube videos, it has expanded, and people are now have heard about me. I mean, that there's been I'm certainly not a celebrity, but I mean, there are more people that have heard of me.
Sure. I mean, you probably have, you have millions of views, don't you?
I think we're maybe 2 to 3 million
Wow.
views.
Yeah. That's amazing. That's amazing. And to think that that's all just in the last few years, right? I mean, it's really sort of
Right.
great.
I would say in the last 2 years.
Yeah.
And then even the last year has been even the most expansive,
Yeah.
because I learned more about how to use YouTube well. And
Mm-hmm.
I didn't know all that stuff. I'm not Generation Y or Generation what,
Yeah.
and so I got me a Generation Y person to help me with social
Yes.
media.
Yeah. And how has that changed your practice? The fact that now there are, you've had literally millions of people watch your videos, and, tens of thousands of subscribers and growing all the time. How does that change the work you do? How does it change your ability to serve your clients?
Well, I think in terms of how I still meet with clients. I still have monthly calls with members we do have exclusive content that members can watch. Um, I'm still doing videos regularly. I'm working slow, since I'm not a young man anymore. I'm working slowly to try to work out of seeing clients individually or as couples or families or whatever, and work on more content, um, providing content for YouTube, and because that seems to reach even a broader number of
Sure.
people than me just working with people one-on-one.
Sure.
There's only so many hours in a week.
Yeah, right. I mean, how many therapists, right? You're sitting down with people, one-on-one, right, for an hour at a time. How many people can you reach in a week, right? How many people can you reach in your life? right? But you go on YouTube and all of a sudden you can reach the whole world, and you've literally reached hundreds of thousands of people, and with millions of views.
And, you know, and I have people all the time that write to me and say, oh my gosh, you've changed our lives. And all of us in this neighborhood in India just watch your videos and love you. You know, it's
Really?
like, well, I could have never had that,
Wow.
you know, kind of
That's super
reach, or,
cool.
you know, that kind of response. And so I'm
Wow.
really thrilled about that. And again, I would like to take more credit for it, but I'm afraid I happen to have good material. It's you just
Okay.
have
Well,
this
you're a modest person.
66-year, well, because
You're
I
a
have,
modest person, Jerry. Like I said, I've known you for a while. I've worked with you for a while. I think you're being very modest, but I think there's a reason why people gravitate towards you and to the material that you give over in your way. You mentioned you have clients now all over the world. You have clients in Saudi Arabia. I think you told me in Egypt.
Australia, Egypt, UK,
Yeah,
Canada, Mexico,
yeah, and that's
Russia.
all because of YouTube, really.
Correct.
Wow,
And
amazing.
they, well, and I think another positive thing is there's some good therapists out there, and there's some so-so therapists out there,
Right.
which Brad, you and I know. And a lot of places are not, you don't have a lot of choices for who you can work with.
Yeah.
You have two therapists in your town, and that's
Sure.
all there is. You know what?
Sure, right. Not
Then you got
everyone
to
lives
drive
in
2 hours.
right. Not everyone
Not
lives in
everybody
Los
lives in New
Angeles
York
or
or
Manhattan or right. Sure, that's a good point.
right. And so if you can get on with somebody who's a specialist, and who now you have access to someone who might merely specialize in something, and you can still see them online,
Yes.
FaceTime, Skype, Zoom, you
Yes.
know, and people would, because otherwise how would someone from Saudi Arabia be working with me here in, you know,
Sure.
Indianapolis, Indiana area? I mean,
Sure.
they're not going to fly over, you know. And
Exactly. I used to have a client from Turkey who would fly in specially
mhm.
to see me in New York, but that was a long time ago. I mean, it seems like a long time ago. And now with Zoom, it's interesting because of the pandemic, right? I think people are all of a sudden
Oh,
much more
absolutely.
open to it. I remember just a few months before, things got really hectic with COVID. I remember somebody calling me and I said, I'm working over Zoom. And he was like, therapy over Zoom, like, and he couldn't wrap his head around it. And, we spoke maybe, on the phone once or twice. And he said, yeah, I can't do Zoom therapy. And of course, a month or two later, that's the only option
That's
there
the
is. So,
only option there is.
but I think that for a lot of people, like you said, I think the opportunity to see a therapist that you might not be able to see because he's not in your neighborhood, to see someone who really resonates, with you, someone who really has something to offer you that you resonate with them, that you can only do that online. And
And
I
I
think that's
and
great.
and I think it's a wonderful thing. I wish I would have had when I was going through therapy, though I happened to find a couple of good ones. But again, I was kind of in the Indianapolis area, so it's a bigger market. But there's
Yeah,
certainly in my smaller town where I was living, there I couldn't see any of the therapists in
sure.
that town. I didn't want to, and I didn't, you know,
Yeah,
and I didn't think they were as good as
right.
these other folks.
Sure,
And so
sure.
I wish I would have had an online option to see
Yes,
anybody I wanted anywhere.
right. Yeah, yeah. Um, I wanted to ask you about, I've noticed that, I looked at what your most popular videos were, and I noticed that a lot of them have to do with this theme of narcissism, right? And
Hmm.
a bunch of them, I said you have a lot of videos on the topic, and a lot of them are very popular. What is it about narcissism that is so interesting to people that, gets so much interest? Are there more narcissists now than there were in the past? Are people more aware of narcissism? What is it why are these videos so popular?
Well, and I have my own theories. I don't know that we have all the research on that, but the narcissism is a popular theme these days, as I'm sure you
Mhm.
can tell, and just
Yeah.
in social media, you can see narcissism as a theme. And I think it's the one thing about it that I think helps people is they may discover that they may have parents or siblings or a husband or who has either narcissistic personality disorder, or narcissistic traits.
Yeah.
And this helps them as a paradigm and a model for understanding this strange behavior and how they interact with them.
Yeah.
You know, why is it my husband has no empathy? And then I keep trying to figure that out. And I keep trying to, well, maybe if I do this, he'll have more empathy. Maybe if well, now, wait a minute. Maybe he just doesn't have empathy. Oh, well, he might have narcissism or some type of traits or personality disorder. And so it's been a relief for people to have that as another category and as an option. And I think there has been not as much talked about narcissistic parenting and how people will experience narcissistic abuse being children of narcissists. And people they'd say, well, my parents never drank, but I have all these symptoms and problems so what was the dysfunction in my family? Well, your parents or your parent may have been a narcissist. Mm-hmm. And is this the case? And then they can put that in and start to think about that more, not just to label their parents, but to find a way to recover.
Yes.
So it's not the labeling that I emphasize, it's the way to recover that I
think that's an important point.
Emphasize.
It's an important point because I remember a number of years ago, I read that, narcissist is sort of a term that we use for people that we don't like, right? Now, obviously that's not, that's not the technical definition. And there is a real definition of what a narcissist actually is. But I think for a lot of people, it means be like, oh yeah, you're a narcissist, you're a bad person.
They were insensitive, or they were,
exactly.
And so they must be narcissistic. Well, and I will try to caution and try to, buffer that kind of understanding. Though I've met with people who I think their parents truly were narcissists.
Yes.
I mean, it's so blatantly obvious. Though it's always a danger to diagnose from a distance.
Sure.
But I don't mind using the term. I don't mind helping with that. But it's not so they can be alienated from people. It is so they can recover and be more healthy and whole.
Yeah.
That's
I wanted to pick up on something you said a minute ago also. Sure. So it sounds like you're saying that adult children of narcissists are very similar to adult children of alcoholics.
And let me tell you my own theoretical understanding of that, because addiction is narcissistic. So alcoholics are narcissistic. All addicts are, all alcoholics are, because we're just into us. I mean, we're into our addiction, drinking, gambling, whatever. And so it's a very narcissistic illness. Mm-hmm. And so that's why there's such similarity between the two. Only one is caused by a disease, another may be caused by a personality disorder.
Interesting. That actually transitions into the next thing I wanted to ask you about, which is sex addiction, right? You know that's a big part of my practice and a big part of the work that I do. So this is very interesting. You mentioned that all addictions are narcissistic. I've found that in my practice, there's a big overlap between sex addiction and narcissism. I wanted to just get your take on that. If you have any thoughts on sex addiction and how, let's say, your approach to dealing with them, maybe from your family therapy approach, or I'm just, curious to hear about that.
Well, certainly sex addiction has a narcissistic component to it, as all addictions do. And many times true narcissists will have sex addiction as well. If an NPD person, it is not uncommon for them to have sexual addiction. In treating sex addicts, I think of dealing with the addiction and recovery, dealing with the character flaws and personality issues from the addiction, and then dealing with the family of origin components of that propel them into sexual addiction. I like all those layers because I think they're all there. And family of origin issues are often a part of that because I think we've talked about sexual addiction being an intimacy disorder.
Yes.
It's an intimacy disorder. Well, where did we learn intimacy? Where did we learn about intimacy? We didn't learn about it 5 years into our marriage.
Right.
We learned about it long before then, and we're modeled different ways. And so then it can come out in addictive ways.
Mm-hmm.
And sex addiction is very prevalent these days. I think it's rampant. It's just it's a pandemic.
Yeah. Yeah. So you're saying, interesting. So you're saying that it's important for sex addicts to focus on the family of origin aspect of their disease, right?
If they're out of control and they're seeing prostitutes twice a week and at risk of having legal problems, et cetera, or they're having affairs and at risk their marriage or whatever, well, then I wouldn't say, okay, let's just start with family of origin.
Yeah, of course.
We have to start with the
you have to stabilize
surrender, stabilize
exactly.
them, right? But after they are stabilized, then we don't want to ignore the family of origin.
Right. You have to get there at some point, which is interesting because you do meet some people in recovery who get involved in 12 steps, right? And, family of origin is not one of the 12 steps, right? So it's sort of like, and they say, hey, look, all I need is the 12 steps. I mean, depending on which program they're in and which meetings they go to, for some people in there, it's like, that's what they take away. It's like, all I need are the 12 steps. All I need is power, right?
All I don't need to do.
Right. So what am I wasting my time with? Now you want to talk about my childhood. What are you wasting my time for? So what would you say to people who have that approach, who come from that perspective?
No, I think that's great. And excuse me, working in inpatient treatment for a number of years as a family counselor in inpatient treatment for addicts and alcoholics, I bridged or spanned between 12 steps and traditional psychotherapy. Yeah. And because I did both and I knew both, whereas many of the treatment providers in there were either recovering alcoholics or addicts who had maybe gotten a bachelor's degree and they were great. I mean, they were great people and knew a lot, but they didn't know this component over here. And so when I would talk to them and say, well, there is maybe the 13th step, no, I don't mean that in a funny way. 13th step has a particular view in the 12-step community, but the 13th step should have been, and I will follow my higher power in working on my ACOA issues.
ACOA being adult children of
alcoholics
or addicts or narcissists.
Or narcissists, right? And because you're right, there are many alcoholics who are ACOAs as well as alcoholic. They're adult children of alcoholics and recovering alcoholics. Yeah. And so working on those issues, and in fact, even in the big book, that's what I think the author of the big book talked about in terms of emotional sobriety. Mm-hmm. And that's him looking beyond the 12 steps to emotional sobriety. And so that's why I have my concept is 3 steps: coming out of denial, working the 12 steps, and then working on family of origin issues and self-differentiation. I like that's a 3-stage
I like
recovery process.
Maybe you need to I don't know, you need to get the message out to a lot of the the sort of I guess hardcore how do I want to say it?
12-step
the 12 steppers. Yes, the 12. Well, I'm a big proponent of the 12 steps,
and I am too.
But I think you're right. There needs to be some message there for a lot of people in 12 steps that besides this, or in addition to this, you need to also get to some of this family of origin stuff. Otherwise, you might still be stuck with a lot of the patterns, the dysfunctional patterns.
And I still have the workshop or seminar I gave. It was for about 8 hours, I think. And it was to treatment providers that we had at the hospital I was working at, but invited treatment providers from all over. And we had like 50 or 80 people, I don't know.
Wow.
And I talked about the 3 stages of recovery.
Oh, that's great.
And because I wanted to educate them that this is, 12 steps is not the end. It's the beginning.
Yeah.
But it's needed, but it's not the end.
It's just in some circles, what you're, saying that out loud is, heresy, right?
Oh, I know.
But I agree with you 100%. I agree with you 100%. So you have that workshop online that people can.
I don't.
Not yet.
I was trying to think if I have it. I've been looking through old recordings, and I've been trying to find and see if I recorded that. But I do have the original outline and the material.
Yeah.
But I don't know if I have a live recording of that.
Okay. Well, that sounds like another thing that people might be interested in hearing from you.
I agree.
Okay. So, Jerry, how do people who are interested in getting in touch with you, to maybe, become a coaching client, how do people reach you? How do they find you on the internet, on social media?
And it's not hard. I think if you type in Jerry Wise these days, Google comes up with a lot of my stuff right up on the first page. Mm-hmm. My website is www.jerrywiserelationshipsystems.com. You can contact me in email, jerrywise5@gmail.com. Often on all of my videos, I give my phone number, my website, on all the videos I have on my YouTube channel, which is Jerry Wise Relationship Systems YouTube channel, and just contact me. And again, if you go to the website, you can read, I have a couple of other associates who work with me as well. And some people want to work with them, and that's great. Me, I tend to do my own scheduling and my own with people. But that you would get your questions answered there, or just write to me directly.
Okay, fantastic. And I will include all of that information in the description for this video.
Great.
Okay. Jerry, thank you so much for your time today. I was, as always, it's very interesting and enlightening talking to you. I think you're a great guy and a great therapist, and it's a pleasure to know you and to work with you.
Well, that's such a compliment. And I really hope to see Brad Salzman on YouTube more, because I think you're a great teacher and I think you're a great speaker. And I really think you also have a message that I think is so needed these days about sexual addiction and about family dynamics. And I hope to see more of that.
Yes. Okay. Well,
and it's been a pleasure being your friend.
Yes. Thanks so much, Jerry. Okay. Take care. Have a great day.
Have a great day.
Okay. Bye-bye.